If you non-renew your resident for the wrong reason, you could get sued and slapped with a big fine. If you non-renew your Arizona resident in your lease agreement, this means at the end of the lease, you as the landlord should have the prerogative of ending the lease. If you do it for the wrong reason, you could be hit with a major fine. There was a case that just came down, and we need to talk about this. So check this out. I get this newsletter from Zona Law. These guys are experts. They're amazing. Mark Zimmon over there, he's our guy. Look at what this says. So on May 23rd, Attorney General Mays announced that her office had obtained a consent decree against the landlord in a fair housing case related to the landlord's non-renewal of the resident. Here's what happened. The resident obtained an assistance animal. This is a very hot topic over the last few years. In fact, there was a story of a guy who actually used an online website to get a beehive declared as his assistive animal, just to kind of like prove how ridiculous things have gotten in some cases, right? There's these online sources. We use a service called petscreening.com. These guys at a very high level understand the laws, and that helps our landlords stay safe from infringements on ADA laws, right? You cannot discriminate against people with disabilities. And the assistive animal, even if it's an emotional support animal, is protected under these laws. And sometimes it's very easy to get an animal classified as an emotional support animal. If you're a landlord and you're like pissed that your resident got an emotional support animal, right? Legit or not legit, you think it's not legit, well, be careful, because this could happen to you. Basically, the Attorney General argued the landlord discriminated based on disability and retaliated by non-renewing the resident's lease. So if you think that landlords in Arizona just have the prerogative to end a lease for any reason at the end of the lease agreement, you could be wrong. Let's see what Mark Zinman and his colleagues say about this. I'm gonna add a separate. I'm gonna show you clips from their recent podcast about this. You ready? Here we go.
To your point, you might want to non-renew somebody based on a history of delinquent payments. You might want to non-renew somebody based on interactions that they have with other residents, negative interactions with staff in the office, things like that. So,
okay, the problem is, what if you non-renew someone and they feel like you're retaliating against them? You're non-renewing them because they're in a protected class. You can't do that. You can't just say, hey, I'm non-renewing you because you're fill in the blank protected class. That's against the law. Listen to what Mark says about this.
You have pretty much any reason in the world, then you can non-renew somebody, right? Is there anything you can't do?
So you can non-renew somebody for any reason, like we said, or no reason at all.
That's good news. Any reason or no reason at all, except for, listen to this.
With two main exceptions. And the first is that the reason has to be non-discriminatory. You can't give somebody a notice of non-renewal for a discriminatory reason, some reason that's a person is a member of some protected class.
Right. And so everybody knows from our previous podcast, your protected class is the main seven: race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, and disability. So even just the last one, right? Like, you're disabled, I won't rent to you. That's clearly discriminatory, or I won't, in this case, non-renew you. So what's the other? So one with discrimination, what's the other reason you can't non-renew somebody?
And the other reason would be retaliation. Now, retaliation is defined in the statute. It's in 33-1381. There are 4 reasons that are defined as retaliation, and they involve a range of issues that some can come up frequently, others...
This is important. Listen up. If you could be accused as retaliating, that you kicked someone out of your home, it's a rental home, you should have landlord and tenant sign a 1-year lease. At the end of that 1-year lease, you just say, hey, I've got other plans. I don't want you living there anymore. Sorry, you're going to have to leave. You give them proper notice, which is at least 30 days. Or if your lease says it's longer, it's a lot longer than that. Whatever the lease says, but at a minimum 30 days. And they feel like you're retaliating against them, you could be opening yourself up for a lawsuit. So listen very carefully what he says about this retaliation.
Will be less frequent. If a tenant is making a complaint to the landlord about habitability, about a complaint that the landlord failed to fulfill its duties under 33-1324. Another reason would be if the tenant complained to a government organization in charge of either enforcing health codes, or complained to a government agency in charge of the Price Wage Stabilization Act. And the 4th reason would be if the tenant joined a tenants union or some similar organization. So those categories, some of which are common, some of which are uncommon, would be a reason that If the tenant did that thing, you could not then go and give them a notice of non-renewal.
Wow. So if your tenant really knows what they're doing and they're really upset that you don't want to renew their lease, you've maybe signaled that to them, or you have different plans or whatever, or you just don't like who they are as a person, or they've given you a hard time, or you think they're requesting too much maintenance, that could be retaliation. And in fact, all they have to do is go join a tenants union or complain to a governmental agency about you. And then if you non-renew them, the stakes are much higher that you could be violating this this exception where you can't non-renew out of retaliation. Okay, I'm going to fast forward to 8:15 in this. This is a really good podcast, by the way. If you'd like a link sent to you, actually, I'll try to include a link in the post if I can. Now check out what they say
days,
here.
if it's applicable, 35 days, whatever it is, and send out the notice. Now, the next question, of course, is you send out this non-renewal. You know the first thing that's going to happen, that resident's going to come into the office and say, why'd you non-renew me? What's the appropriate response?
Right.
This is really key. Listen up. If somebody asks you, why are you not renewing my lease? This is very important.
We don't recommend that you get into the specifics of the reasons for the non-renewal with the tenants, right? You ought to have the reasons. You probably have communicated some of the difficulties in the past with the tenant. But when the tenant approaches you and says, hey, why'd you do this? The best response we feel is you tell them it's a business decision. We've decided to non-renew you. We've just made the business decision to non-renew. You don't go into the details. You don't go into the specifics.
Period. Full stop. That's it. Okay, now check this out. After I watched this, I emailed Mark Zinman. I'm going to show you what that email was like. Here we go. Sharing this tab now. I said, hey, Mark, I watched the pod. Great content. Why would anyone give a reason for non-renewal? Is it required and I somehow missed it all this time? Why would I provide the resident any ammunition for arguing with me about why I'm not renewing them? I was curious, like why are we talking about these reasons? Like, who's actually giving reasons? He said, I can never speculate what motivates people to do these things. In other words, giving residents reasons why they're not being renewed. I can only report on what I see and advise against actions that I see as creating unnecessary problems. Come to think of it, if everyone acted logically, I probably wouldn't have a job. So true. Truer words never spoken by an attorney. So bottom line is, landlord tip for the day. Be careful what you say if you choose not to renew a resident. We all know that some residents aren't the greatest fit for the business relationship that is between landlord and resident. But do not non-renew a resident because they requested too much maintenance. For heaven's sake, don't non-renew them because they joined a tenant union, and absolutely unequivocally do not non-renew them because they got an emotional support animal or assistive animal that was qualified. And if you don't know what qualified is, use a service like petscreening.com. All right. Because this landlord not only had to retain that resident, but was hit with a $35,000 fine. So happy landlording. Don't let that happen to you.